Sony gave us a second top tier device this year to fill a few voids that perhaps its flagship Xperia Z couldn't. This comes as the Xperia ZL. While much is unchanged and mirroring that of its non-identical twin, the parts that are different in a big way and for the better, in some cases. Let's check it out. The ZL sparks one major difference from its brother on first hold. It is super compact for a 5-inch display device. In fact, it's a smaller footprint, while still being slightly thicker than the Xperia Z. Sony went to exorbitant length to show its competitors that increasing the display doesn't need to blow out a device's dimensions, and it is truly worth the effort. It is ergonomically far better in use than the Xperia Z. Actually, it's more of a boxed out Galaxy S3 when you overlay the two. Part of the ergonomic win is thanks to taking leniencies on Sony's omni-balance ideal of symmetry and design by allowing the rear panel to bulge ever so slightly and contour your palm. But this removes the sleek glass panel of the Z, which I found very attractive, and replaces it with a hollow textured plastic that makes this device feel mid-ranged and not worthy of its top tier price tag. Many of the same design elements have carried across, with a very similar simply faced front panel, matte black plastic edges that protrude slightly above the glass, and the glossy plastic sides. The new very obvious unlock button also carries across and really defines Sony devices this year. It is perfectly placed, and while bucks the trend of masking elements in a device's design, I really loved it. It gives it character and easy functionality. This isn't the only place on the ZL that this happens. While it has the same rear-facing camera as the Xperia Z, Sony made it a standout feature on the ZL, encasing it in a large protruding cover and giving it contrasting metallic edges. The right-hand side of the device holds most of the inputs. Besides the unlock button centrally, the volume rocker has been shifted to the top, which is a perfect placement with this size display, and a dedicated camera shutter button at the bottom, which wins brownie points with me. The top has the headphone jack, and the top left-hand side bulges to accommodate the micro USB charging port. The most odd part of the design was to keep it unibody when they've had to create an arse flap to allow the fitment of a micro SD card and micro SIM card. Under here is also a dedicated off button, which you don't see that often. The little flap is really an eyesore, and I hated having to use it. The size decrease has also meant that the front-facing camera had to shift to the base of the device along with the notification light. The light I love. Very cool effect and works well there. The camera, not so much. It gives a more natural eye level conversation, but when looking at the display when in use, you always look like you're looking way above the camera. Ultimately, the design isn't water and dust resistant like the Xperia Z, which lessens its appeal, as that was one of the things I found liberating about the Z as a high-end device. The ZL comes with a powerhouse spec sheet the same as its brother, with an extra little bonus in the form of an IR blaster. This comes bundled in an excellent application to mimic the controller for any of your home electronics like smart TVs. What the Z and ZL share are the same 1.5 GHz quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU, 2 GB of RAM, and the Adreno 320 GPU. This translated to a beastly performance. Operation was more or less buttery, minus the occasional jitter on initial loading of widgets and home screens. Load times was very fast, and benchmarks sit the ZL really high up the ranks. With nothing but display, gaming looked really impressive. You have 16 GB of internal storage to play with, but this can be bumped up with a 32 GB SD card. However, only photos, videos and movies can be pushed over to the SD card from the internal storage. Bluetooth 4.0, NFC, Wi-Fi and Mirror Link all aid you in connectivity. The ZL comes with a built-in radio with RDS, and the micro USB port can be used to mount a USB device. The ZL has a 2370 mAh lithium-ion battery that is of marginal gain on the Xperia Z, and in use there was no real gain. Continuous HD video playback at full brightness shut down in a bit over 4 hours, and moderate use in a mix of Wi-Fi and LTE signals could see me to the end of the day, but just with enough charge to play around in bed. Standby time was really good, and this can be helped along with Sony's stamina mode that allows you to switch data off when the screen is inactive and make exceptions for particular applications. This model is the 3G variant, and I found the level of reception to be excellent at all times. Calls didn't drop out or get muffled, however, the loudness of the speaker on the ZL is questionable. A 5-inch 1080p display by Sony sounds like a winning combo. Brightness good, colours good, contrast great. Viewing angles bad. A modest angle will deteriorate the screen noticeably and is a sour note to an otherwise striking panel. The Bravia engine too as well helps make movies and videos more vibrant, but would overpower colours in photos unnaturally at times. An additional feature of the ZL is the ability to alter the white balance of the display. The main concern is the screen protector glued onto the panel. It acts as an extra protection for the non-Gorilla Glass screen, but it marks and attracts smudges far worse than other displays. But the accuracy of touch has been perfect nonetheless. The device is running Android Jelly Bean 4.1.2 and for the most part sticks to that formula, with a few notable exceptions. This is great to see considering Sony's previous overlays were largely not loved and were a little more taxing on phones' resources. The lock screen doesn't offer customization of quick launches and sticks with a fixed slider bar for music and the camera. The home screens are a basic 5-page array that can be edited in Sony style, which I found far more convenient, and up to 7 pages with the option to also delete out pages. The color theme of the device can also be altered, but this is about the extent of customizations, which is some of the appeal of other Android skins. Some Sony-made applications are present, the Walkman app and obvious inclusion as always for the brand. Nothing else is really of great note. They all serve a purpose but can be easily filled by another more popular app from the Play Store. The multitasking panel is where you will likely note the largest change from raw Jelly Bean. It has been pushed to the right hand side and includes mini apps. These overlay on running applications. Only one mini app can be active at any one time, even when minimized to the side or the bottom of the display, and for the most part they are usable, sure, but better attempts at this idea have been done. Now this software review has been quite short because I've covered a lot of it in the Xperia Z review, so be sure to watch that one as well to make up your mind on either device. Organising your movie collection is brilliant on the Xperia ZL thanks to the Movies app that sources thumbnails and info about each video for you. The tiny bezel around the device makes it seem like you're holding nothing but screen, but the loudspeaker position near the rear-facing camera is obscured when holding the phone in landscape. Audio performance is okay, but far from the best and can be helped along by some neat add-on settings. The quality of the 13 megapixel camera with the Exmor RS sensor was fair. I found an underlying grain that would detriment many of the shots, particularly in darker sections of a scene, but mostly photos were sharp and usable. There is a tendency for greens and blues to show more prominently, and in particular when using HDR video. The superior auto setting was brilliant at automatically adjusting settings and picking up dark zones of photos based on its interpretation of the scene and type of shot required, but this could also mean you choose a style of shot that wasn't exactly what you're looking for or create a composition that had unwanted grain. The general layout and depth of inclusion was top of the pack and more in line with the dedicated Sony camera than a smartphone. The biggest plus is the dedicated shutter button, but the biggest concern is the 2 megapixel front-facing camera that was regularly obstructed by normal phone usage. Use the shutter button, or best practice is actually to use the device upside down so the camera is in a normal position. But go to the KABOOtech Facebook page with the link in the description below to check out all the test shots. If this was the only top tier entry for Sony this year, they would have copped major flack over the design. Not that it is all bad, of course. The size is a shining example of how a 5-inch display needs to fit in, but the compromises for me weren't worth the reward in the end. I much prefer the sleek balanced symmetry of the Xperia Z. The display for Sony is a massive concern, especially when we see how the other 5-inch panels come through this year. Maybe timing will be Sony's friend and buy them some sales by getting in before the pack, because performance and software were both superb. And the price point for the ZL is also not too bad for what you're ending up with. It is much cheaper than the S4 and HTC One, which will be major competitors soon. But the ZL has plenty of charm and may be a better fit for you than the Xperia Z. So check it out at mobicity.com by using the link in the description below. I'm Kurt and this is KABOOtech. Thanks for watching.